Fun is a highly subjective state, but there is a reason why we can sit as consumers amongst a multi-million-pound industry, while simultaneously being able to collectively appreciate great films, books, or games. So although it's subjective, there are parts that are definable and set in a hard jelly. And it's a hard jelly because I'm not 100% sure I have everything written down. You know, there's a little room to wobble or expand or add. You know, it might be easy to start with the areas that are subjective, since I think there are less. The first area that allows for subjectivity in enjoying something is field of interest. For whatever reason, there are people who enjoy gardening, while people under the age of 50 have never even considered gardening a thing to enjoy. So it would be very hard for me to give a shit about a film or a game directly about gardening. And the other way for field of interest to impact on the subjectivity is if it requires prior knowledge. I don't understand computers. Electricity makes things say yes or no. A lot of things saying yes or no makes a language, and that language is used to make another language, and now stuff is happening. I don't know, or even if that's right. But the point is, if something requires any knowledge of what a computer is to enjoy it, I won't be able to. And the opposite is somewhat true. If you know exactly how a computer works, you would probably get pretty angry if something either got it wrong, and that was a major plot point, or if you're watching like the Teletubbies explain what a computer is to you. I guess. So those are the two ways that subjectively decide if you can enjoy something. Level of interest in the main topic, and levels of prior knowledge. There's also difficulty, but I'm getting to that now. I think golf is a good way to exemplify how levels of difficulty in a game completely change the demographic. Because in golf, well not in golf, but in the world of golf, you have golf and mini golf. So, take golf. So start with golf, or a hard shot in golf, or the hardest shot in golf. You step up to play the hardest shot you can possibly make. I don't know what the hardest shot you can possibly make is in golf. Whatever, you know, just for the sake of it, let's just say they are doing it, for whatever reason. How long would it take a person to perfect that shot versus whatever the hardest shot in mini golf would be? The hardest shot in golf is obviously going to be harder than the hardest shot in mini golf because you're playing on a bigger fucking field. So, although you are able to enjoy mini golf, you might not be able to play golf at all. Or if you play golf, you won't get the same type of thrill from mini golf. And that's all three, I think.
I suggest feather touch. You have entered power drive. Ball is in. Parking lot. Would you like to play again?
Back to the question though, what makes a game fun? Continuing with golf and the type of feeling you get from doing something, you've been practicing it for years. You felt it countless times before. This single hardest shot in golf. You know, whatever it may be. But this time, you make it. 1,000 past frustrations remedied, allowing you this single moment of a fist pump and 10 people in the crowd clapping 3 times each. But still, would you call that fun? You're playing a game, and you've done something meaningful, it's satisfying and rewarding, and that's the reason we play games, but it's not the fun. It's a different kind of fun. The challenge, the trial, it's that moment in AGDQ where the guy commentating over the top of his buddy's speedrun, and he says, oh, this bit is hard. Oh, this bit is very challenging. And everyone claps when he does it first time. And you've just got to take their word for it. You haven't seen the tribulation, the practice, the creativity to get this solution to be the fastest part of the fastest way to do something. You've only seen the result. And that's the way that playing a game is fun, but watching it isn't. And it's becoming more and more relevant as we delve into looking for spectator esports. But that's something for another time. Why is that even written there? And then you take something easier, like a kid's game. and you do the hardest thing. The satisfaction isn't there, the reward isn't there. If a player isn't sufficiently challenged, it will become tedious, and if it isn't satisfying or fun, then why are you playing a game? Well, if it doesn't have a good story mode, or interesting world to explore, or an enveloping soundtrack, or a personality thing that you like about it, or there's one cool character you really give a shit about who makes dumb jokes and, you know, makes your world a lot better. But, you know, whatever. So what else can be fun? What are the worlds of games that we have? Card games. I like them. I like card games. Card games operate on a different scale. Card games are based on decision making rather than on a frustration, tedium, satisfaction spectrum. Centered on engaging the player. And how do they do that? Options. Card games have a lot of options to make it fun and engaging. Whether it be picking the right one from deck building to the scenario in a match, or even just seeing the right option as a creative solution you didn't see before. It's like a MacGyver problem solving, but instead of paper clips, you have shiny cards with anime girls on. This exists. This is a real thing, and we need to stop it. Because card games aren't player versus environment like golf or a single player story game is, there isn't a chance for it to become tedious, as the difficulty isn't predetermined by the developer or the creator of the course. It's always against a person, but it can become boring if opponents or their decks aren't up to scratch, and this side of card games applies to PvP strategy games of all types, especially with a dynamic opponent rather than just randomness online. There's another part of card games that doesn't exist in other strategy games, which is the part of the game where you're dealing with the unknown, working out what they have in their hand based on what's happened so far. In a lot of strategy games, all the tools are there, you know all the things that they can do, and it's just a matter of thinking which one they can do. But in card games, there's dealing with the unknown, working out what they have in their hands based on the things that have happened so far. For card games, because it operates on a different scale, the tedium emerges when the flowchart is too dominant and disallows other creative options to ever be needed. This just makes it very boring, and you're doing the same thing over and over and over again until it becomes habit. And their frustration exists when things don't go to plan, like when a ridiculous amount of luck has just saved someone or stopped you from doing something. It's a different type of frustration compared to knowing you can do something but not pulling it off, like something technical or execution based. And in card games, because they are slower and there's more time to think and reflect on things, the frustrations can be more evident as you see more facial actions and more sinking into their hands as they think about whatever the fuck just happened. Now, as we've already hit on card games, it becomes pretty obvious that, you know, luck is a big part of what can make a game fun, because the entirety of the gambling industry is built on people having fun with chance. You could just invest it if money was the objective of what you were doing. You could give it to charity if feeling good was the aim, or buy something, you know, anything. But you've chosen to play the devil's game. But you've chosen to gamble it, which means there's another reason. And luck is one more layer of fun games can have. Whenever something can go horribly wrong or horribly right, and you have no control over it, and you crucially know that no one has any control over it, it can only be fun, as you are disconnected with no input. It turns into a show. RNG, luck, chance, whatever, it comes in a few more shapes than just in dice rolls and top decks. Loot is luck. That's a huge part of what makes RPGs, dungeon crawlers and MMOs, or just generally very repetitive games, that I'd consider grindy and tedious. It allows them to be fun by having this essentially a gambling thing of you putting in time and seeing what comes out. You know, you could get a 1 in 10,000 thing that you've been grinding hours and days for, or you could get nothing. I mean, I don't get the point, but there's a lot of things I don't get the point of, like stroking butter onto your burger, but, you know, this fucker's doing it, so whatever.
I'm going to show you how to make the most amazing burger, and for me the secret of burger is in the season it. Now, season them. Make sure it's seasoned. Also, roll the seasoning around the edge of the burger. Salt, pepper, So just lightly brush a little bit of butter on there, and it makes the burger so tasty. Now, if you want to become even more chefy, what can you do? Season them.
It's very important that when luck is involved, everyone knows that the luck is obviously luck. It's obviously random numbers being generated or a coin being flipped, and there's no skill involved. In games like FIFA, where you have stats like passing accuracy and composure, while also having an option to put everything on manual and make it all skill based, you've created a thing where the luck could be playing a part, but you don't know it if it is. And when you have a dice roll potentially attached to something, it makes players question whether it was their ability as a player that fucked it up, or they don't know if, or it could have been the random numbers generated poorly and fucked up the pass. It's very annoying. It can be very frustrating having that as an element in your game versus it just being a dice roll and everyone knows it's a dice roll. And then there's the hectic mayhem, unrealistic wackiness and speed and gimmicks that just exist in games that have been working since the start of time. Even if you look at the average fruit machine, that is just lights and fucking everything going everywhere. And you know, if you translate that into a video game sense, into the video game world, you get you get a Marvel 3, you get a complete shitfest where you don't know what's going on. And you know, that's it. I'd say a lot of fun comes down to having a satisfying experience, being able to invest into it without getting overly frustrated or made to do the video game equivalent of chores. A sense of progress, whether in your own ability as a player or items from trolling dungeons. So, you know, if you've watched this far, thanks for watching. If you have any ideas as well about what fun could be, you know, I think that the jelly could do with some flavour or made bigger, because you can never have enough jelly if the supermarket's for anything to go by. Yeah, subscribe, like, whatever, fucking, who cares, dude? I mean, no, if someone's actually watched this far, you're a crazy bastard.